Every agency operator wants and needs to know how much capacity their team has because burnout is a real thing. And if you have no idea how much work your team has on their plate, then you're at risk of either under or overworking your team, leading them to getting burnt out. So let's walk through the 5 steps that you need to take to start to understand workload and capacity inside of ClickUp. Let's get started. All right, so let's jump into ClickUp now and talk about the 5 steps that you need to start to understand workload and capacity for your team. So the first one is super easy. There's probably a chance that you've already done it inside of ClickUp. I want to give you a few additional things to know about when you're building this out. So the first one is going to be building your workload view here at the everything level. And the reason I'm doing it at the everything level is because there's a chance that you probably have a bunch of different spaces, folders, and lists, and people have work in all those different spaces and folders and lists. If I build the workload view out of space, a folder, or a list, I'm only going to see the work within that list, folder, or space. So I want to make sure I'm telling the full story and understanding all of the work and capacity for the team inside of ClickUp. So I need to build that at the everything level so I can funnel all of those spaces, folders, and lists into that one view. So go ahead to your everything level. Very easy. All I need to do, navigate there, go to add a view just like this, go to workload, add workload, and there you go. You've completed step 1. Congratulations. So there's a chance that you create that workload view though, and it doesn't look like this. We're going to go over all that in this video, but that might just be because you don't have tasks or assignees or due dates or time estimates. So there's a chance that this might be blank and not look exactly like this. So as you'll see here in the everything level workload view, I have all my settings and filters just like I would any other view. If I navigate over here, I'm going to see 1 week or 2 weeks. If you built a workload view inside of ClickUp, you'll know that if you build it out of space, folder, or list, you have the ability to create it across a whole month. So you see if I do 1 week versus 2 weeks, I can now see across 2 weeks in sort of this one view. I can over here navigate from sort of these 2 weeks to the next week to the next week to the next week, which is great, but I want to have a picture of just all of that in one place. I want to be able to see across a whole month. Fortunately, ClickUp, at the time I'm recording this video, you cannot do that at the everything level. However, I have a quick, because you're watching this video, I have a quick little ClickUp hack for you that can make it so that you can actually see 1 month here at the everything level. So let's put a pause on this and let's go build this and talk about this quick ClickUp hack. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a workload view template. And I'll go over how to build a view template if you've never done that before, but you can really build this wherever you want to. It's not a big deal of where you actually build this view template. However, I like to keep all this organized. So I'm going to go down into my process library and I have my view templates here in a folder. You'll see I have these everything view inside of just one list, and they're all built out here of what I could use at the everything level. So right here, I have my overall workload view, and I'm going to save this as a template. But let's talk about a few of the settings that you're going to want on this before you actually save this as a template and deploy it at the everything level. So here, and this is what yours might look like to start. If you don't have any tasks or anything inside of ClickUp, it's going to look blank. You're not going to have anything that has an assignee on it. So it's just going to look like this, and it's not very exciting. But we're going to go over how to actually make that accurate and populate it throughout this video. So what you're going to want to do, we're going to group this by assignee. You can also do status, custom field, tags, things like that, but very helpful to do assignee. So let's do that. You have a couple filters if you want to adjust anything on there as well. Don't do me mode or assignees. We're going to show close because it's always helpful to see the close tasks in there as well. We don't want that to disappear from our workload. And as you'll see over here, as I navigate here, I can show 1 month. So that's what I said. If you do it at the list, folder, or space, you have the opportunity to do 1 month. So I'll show you how you can move that to the everything level. We want to make sure 1 month's turned on, and workload, we're going to do time estimates. If you use sprint points, you can do that. Probably don't do tasks, but if you want to do time estimates, that's what I would recommend here. A big thing to note within your workload view, go to customize. You're going to see workload options. A lot of this will be turned on already. I like to have weekends on. That's one that's just super helpful because if a task does fall on a Saturday or Sunday, we'll make sure we get that moved to a Monday or Tuesday. So that can be very helpful to see that. So have weekends turned on. But the one thing in this that's not turned on when you first create your workload view is the subtasks. And oftentimes this is why people are like, my workload view is not accurate, is because the subtasks is not turned on. And so if you work out of subtasks, then nothing's going to show up inside of your workload view. So you need to make sure that your subtasks are turned on. So go ahead and toggle that on and just leave the rest of this turned on as well. That's all going to be helpful information. Again, we want to tell the full story. So just leave all this turned on, but make sure you go and turn on subtasks. Otherwise, your workload view is going to look very inaccurate. So after that, you're good to go. If you want to adjust anything else, you can, but I think this is the best way of doing it. So go ahead and X that out. And now we are good to save this as a view template. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to my overall workload. I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to go into templates, save this as a template, just like that. You can name it workload view, overall workload, whatever you want it to be, and then go ahead and click save. I've already saved this, so I'm not going to do that, but do that for yourself. And then what we're going to do is go back here to the everything level. We'll go back to that same workload view that we just created at the everything level, and I'll come here and I'm going to click on this. We'll go here, templates. We're going to go into browse templates this time, find our workload view template, use the template, and deploy it. So as this is being applied to that view, you'll notice now I have the opportunity to see across a month in this view. So what I did, I just kind of took that template, deployed it on it, and now we'll see we have the opportunity to do a month. One thing to note with this, and this is why it's helpful to have view templates, is with this, because it is kind of a ClickUp workaround, if I change this to 1 week or 2 week, I'm not gonna be able to go back to the month. I'm gonna have to deploy that template on top of it yet again, because again, we don't have the option at the everything level to do 1 month. However, using that workaround, we are able to. So just make sure you save that view template, because if someone switches this up to a week or 2 week, you won't have the option to go back to a month. So that's the initial building out your workload view. Again, we're gonna talk about how to populate all of this. The only other thing you need to know, and this really depends on your ClickUp plan, you are able to set up custom capacities. So if I want to do daily capacity or weekly capacity, say someone works part-time versus full-time, or maybe we all have off on Fridays, I do have the ability to adjust that, but I need to be on a ClickUp Business Plus or Enterprise plan to be able to do that. So if that is something that's super helpful for you, just know you might have to upgrade your plan on that, but it is very helpful to adjust those capacities if you have some contractors that work with your team, or just maybe some part-time members, or maybe you all take off on Friday and have a 3-day weekend, which is awesome. You can go ahead and adjust that capacity. When I do that, as you'll see, if I do that with Amy, let's go to weekly capacity. Let's say I set this to 30 hours. That's going to adjust it. It's just going to give her a bit of a smaller bar there, so that we'll know if she's over. She might not be over the 8-hour time estimate, but she's over on the whatever it may be, 5, 6, 7 hour time estimate on her workload here. So we just need to make sure that we adjust those so that this can be as accurate as possible again. And the great part about the workload view as well is you are able to move tasks around if you want to. So if I come here and say that Amy is over capacity, I'm able to move some of these tasks around if I want to. I have some falling on the weekend, so I can go and I can move this. I can also reassign it to someone. So there's a lot of drag and drop that you can do within this workload view, which is super nice. Just take note, if you have any dependencies and things like that that are set up inside of your ClickUp workspace, just note that moving this is great, but sometimes you might be missing out on other things that maybe this is dependent on, or blocking, whatever it may be. You won't be able to work with that. So sometimes it's easier to do that in a Gantt view or a list view so that you can see the full picture rather than just these individual tasks. So just take note of that. You can click on the task as well if you want to. Then you can kind of go up to the parent task, and then if you have to do some remapping or reassigning, I would do it that way. But just note, you can do that in the workload view if you want to, which is super nice if you see people that are way over capacity or underutilized, that I can go and move some tasks around inside of the workload view here. All right, so now that we've gone over our workload view and we have this set up, we need to actually start populating it and getting some good data out of it to understand workload and capacity. And the first part of that, and this is step number 2, is understanding the 3 key ingredients that go to actually populating this. And those ingredients are going to be assignees, due dates, and time estimates. We need those on every single task inside of our ClickUp workspace. We need assignees because, as you can see over here, that's how it's going to point which assignee actually has this task. We need time estimate because that's what's actually going to fill this bar up right here. And we need a due date because that's going to show us, is this on the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, so on and so forth. We need to make sure all of those are on every single task inside of our ClickUp workspace. Otherwise, we're not going to have an accurate workload and capacity right here. And yes, that might be another obvious one. You know that time estimates, due dates, and the assignees are what fill up this workload view. But let's talk about a few best practices when you're actually designing out your tasks. That's going to be super helpful for you to get this even more accurate. So I'm going to go down into Shrew Farms. I have a couple examples set up of different tasks and how you can actually build these to either be better or not so great inside of ClickUp. So a couple different examples here of a few things that you need to take into consideration. So when I build out my tasks, and we'll get into how to build these out even better later on with process templates, but within this, we need to make sure that our tasks only have one assignee on each of them. The reason being is Firstly, if you have multiple assignees on a task, then no one really knows who is supposed to do it. So as you can see in this basic deliverable here, I'm assigned to it. Andrew's assigned to it as well as Hero. And if we're all assigned to it, then no one knows who's actually in charge of doing this. So things can easily slip through the cracks. But in addition, when you have a task with a time estimate, a due date, and the assignee on it, what that does with that time estimate is it's now going to say that Andrew has 3 hours and 5 minutes of capacity. I also do as well as Hero. So we need to make sure that that doesn't happen, because that might not be necessarily accurate. This whole deliverable might take 3 hours and 5 minutes. Doesn't mean each of us are going to take 3 hours and 5 minutes on this task right here. There is a ClickUp that you can turn on inside of ClickUp. So if I go here into my settings and look at the ClickUps, this is going to be turned on anyways. It's called time estimates. For you to actually have time estimates, you need this turned on. But there's also called estimates per assignee. What that is essentially going to do is if there is, let's say, a 3 hour time estimate on a task and there's 3 assignees on there, without that turned on, again, it's going to be 3 hours per person, totaling 9 hours. But if this is turned on, that's going to take the time estimate and split it up evenly amongst us. So it'll be an hour for me, an hour for Andrew, an hour for Hero. That might seem good, but unfortunately, with this turned on, what that does then is it takes the time estimate, it applies it to me. So if I were to be on that, I get the hour assigned to me. I can also edit that too. So if maybe I'm doing a little bit more work on that task, an hour and 5 minutes, hour and 10 minutes for someone else that's maybe just doing 50 minutes, I can customize that. But with this, if I then take myself and unassign myself and maybe reassign someone, that time estimate is going to come with me. So essentially it's going to disappear from that task. So just take note of that if you do turn that on. What that'll do is the time estimate then basically gets to assign to the person instead of the task. And so if they get removed from that task, it's going to take the time estimate from the task and just bring with the person and essentially just disappear. So just be careful of that. Again, that's your time estimates. ClickUp, you're going to need that turned on. But estimates per assignee may sound kind of good, but I just would not recommend it based off of those time estimates kind of disappearing there. So that's the first step, is just making sure that, again, every task only has one assignee on it. That's going to make it so much easier to, one, not let things fall through the cracks, and just make time estimates on workload much easier. In addition to that, you'll also see here, my first example, I have a start date and a due date on this task. What that's going to do if I have a start date and a due date is that time estimate of 3 hours and 5 minutes is basically going to be spread across all of those days. So if you have 3 days from the distance between the start date and due date, it's going to take that 3 hour time estimate and make it 1 hour on each day. We might not necessarily want that. Again, that doesn't tell us a great story, because when are they actually working on it? Maybe they're doing 3 hours on one day versus the other days. So what I would recommend is when you go to build out your tasks, instead of having it set up like this, where I have one task, maybe that's my deliverable. Let's say that this is a blog post with multiple assignees on it, start date and due date and a time estimate. I need to take that, and now the parent task becomes the blog post, so this deliverable, and then I break that up into different steps. So all of these steps, one, it's going to make it so things don't fall through the cracks, because I'm able to build out this workflow and pass work back and forth. In addition, instead of having start dates and due dates, I just have due dates on all of these tasks. And what we would recommend is that the due date becomes the due date, or the DO date. So I'm going to do step number 1 on Monday. I'm not going to have a start date and due date. The due date just becomes the DO date. And that's just going to be super helpful, because now, instead of having that time estimate span across multiple days, the time estimate is going to be 1 hour on Monday. It's going to be way easier to see that, give you way more visibility into everything that's happening and going on, and just make it a little bit more granular for these tasks to know what day they're actually doing it, as opposed to, again, spreading that time estimate across multiple days. And so what this is going to do inside of my workload, you'll see this here. If I do have, and I got to go to this next week, as you'll see here, if I have that deliverable, again, spanning across multiple days, it's going to spread it like that. And the time estimate is just going to be split. The 3 hours and 5 minutes can be split up each day, versus the steps, as you'll see, gives me way more visibility to know when I'm actually doing this. So step number 1, step number 4 are following in those dates. As you see, deliverable, again, right there, it's breaking up. Step number 2 is right there. So it's going to be way easier to see what people are actually working on, what work is on their plates for that day. Just make it way easier for the whole team. So you want to make sure that you go through and you build all of your tasks like that. What I would recommend is that each of these become one user in one sitting, not to exceed 4 hours. 4 hours is just kind of a great way to navigate that. Again, if I do an 8 to 12 hour time estimate, then when am I actually working on that? We like to have tasks that are a little bit more bite-sized pieces, not too granular that you're overwhelmed with the amount of tasks, but a little bit more bite-sized to know, hey, I'm going to do this. I can do it in one sitting, just get it done. I'm going to finish it that day, and I'm also going to start it that day. So that's going to help you a lot with understanding workload and capacity for your team. And aside from just how you build out your tasks inside of ClickUps, a few additional things is you're going to want to have a sort of a good culture around this, but you want to make sure, people are not letting their tasks fall overdue. So if you think about in your workload view, if I do have these tasks fall overdue, and again, that's just going to happen. You're going to maybe not get to something else comes up. So with this, I need to make sure I have some sort of view set up where I can see all those overdue tasks. You can break this up sort of how you want. Maybe it's by team, maybe it's by department, however it's set up, or maybe you have one person that kind of comes through and checks all of these. But you want to have a view that's going to show all of your overdue tasks sort of in one spot. So I can kind of come through and see Derek has a lot that were due 4 days ago. And basically what that does in your workload is, let's go back to my example tasks over here in Shroot Farms. If I have a task that falls overdue, let's say that this was on the 9th. If I go back here to the workload, what that's going to be is this is not done right here on Thursday. I have an hour assigned to Thursday for step number 1. And if that's not moved into the future, that's not going to show up here in future workload. So essentially there's going to be hour of work that I still have to do, but it's not showing up here because it's overdue. So we need to make sure that we have our tasks remapped to not fall overdue, and we keep moving them. Always leave context into why it's not complete within the comments, but just make sure that the overdue tasks are not falling overdue and people move those so that they actually will reflect on workload to know, hey, I have an extra hour of work on this day, as opposed to that being back here because I still need to do it. It's not done, and it's not going to be done on Thursday in the past because it wasn't complete then. In addition to your overdue tasks, having a view here where you're going to go through and adjust those, you can also have a QA view. Essentially, this QA view is going to be a place where you can, and this can be made into a dashboard or a view right here. I'm going to go through. I have some filters set up here just to show me where tasks, where the due date's not set, where the signee's not set, and the time estimate's not set. Because again, I need to make sure I come through, and every task in my ClickUp workspace needs to have those 3 key ingredients. So I'm going to come through and I'm going to make sure that these are assigned. They have a due date and a time estimate on it, because without that, then we're going to get into trouble because those aren't going to show up on the workload view. We need to make sure every task is accounted for. So I create this view here. This is at the everything level. Again, dashboard or view, whatever you prefer. You'll want to have a ClickUp champion or someone that comes through this on a daily basis to make sure all those tasks have the key ingredients. And within this view, again, I can just show assignee, due date, time estimate, and I can show who created this task, because what that's going to do is it's going to say, hey, Andrew, who should be assigned to this? And I know who I can ask and leave that in the comments here. So the great part about this too is once I go and I actually do assign this to someone, this is actually going to go ahead and disappear from this view because I have those filters set up. So you can kind of just go through, and until this is at 0, then you'll keep working through these tasks to make sure everything has those 3 key ingredients on them. All right, and so that's just step number 2 of starting to understand workload and capacity for your team there. And now is where it really starts to build on the momentum here. So if you've ever gone and put tasks into your workspace or whatever project management system you may have, just ad hoc, there's a chance that maybe you forget the time estimate. You'll probably put a due date and assignee on there, but we want to make sure, again, this gets to be a bit more scalable, because it might be hard to get all of your work, everything into ClickUp without sort of any templates or process templates that you've built out inside of the system. So you want to make sure that you go, and the big part of actually understanding workload and capacity is building out your process templates here inside of ClickUp. So what I'd recommend is you go ahead and you build out a process library where you're going to store all of the source files for your process templates. This is going to make it very easy to organize them and then save them into the ClickUp Template Center. As you'll see down here, my process library, I have a ton of different templates. I have templates for growth for my sales and marketing team. I have templates for operations for anything from recruiting to finance to any party planning, whatever it may be. I have all those templates built out. Then also have delivery templates as well. And this is where I probably would recommend that you start anything that you do for your clients. You want to make sure you get those templates built out, because that's going to be super important, because you really need to know your delivery team, your client services team, how much work they have on their plates. So you want to build everything you do for people. You got to build out as a process template. So I kind of went over some good fundamentals of how your tasks should be in the system, but I'll kind of show you a little bit more realistic example of what that'll look like. So if I go down into this inbound list, I have a bunch of different templates from podcasts, case studies, landing pages, all the way down to blog posts. This is a good example to walk through. And you'll see in here, I have, again, as I showed you earlier, the deliverable as the parent task, and then the subtasks are all of the steps that are needed to complete this blog post. So this makes it very easy for me to take this, save as a template. I can utilize the task descriptions in here to give instructions on how to do it. And I can make this very scalable for my team. That way, nothing slips through the cracks. And I'm going to see workload because I have all the tasks built out with the due dates and time estimates in here. So as you can see, just like I was showing that example earlier, we have all of our steps: create the blog strategy, write the blog outline, schedule the interview. We have our due dates in here. We have our time estimates in here. And then I also have delivery role, which this is going to, in the future, become the assignee because I want to make these templates scalable. So I'm not going to put assignees on these templates because you might have someone that's a strategist for one client, but not the other. So we want to make sure I do put the assignees on there. Then it's going to be hard to switch all those up. So we can use this delivery role as a way to just say, who's a senior strategist for Dunder Mifflin, and then assign them to all the tasks that are senior strategists for Dunder Mifflin. So it makes it super easy to assign those out. But you're going to go ahead, you're going to build all of these templates, all of the subtasks in here. The due dates are great because I'll just build out a date map of the sort of the distance between these of when they should be due. And then when I can go deploy this after I save it as a template, I can remap it and it's all just going to remap together. And so May 2nd may become December 2nd, and this will become November 18th or whatever that may be. And then it'll all remap all together. In addition to that, you're also going to build dependencies into these tasks as well. And the beauty of that is then it's going to be very easy for your project manager or whoever does the remapping of due dates. It'll make it very easy for them to remap that, skip the weekends and things like that. So as you can see in here, I have all my dependencies built out. And if I wanted to go, and again, in the future, you'll do this when it's actually deployed and live, but I can take this and I can drag it. So in the Gantt view, you'll just need to make sure that you have your settings set up, your Gantt options here, to have reschedule dependencies and hide and skip weekends turned on, because that way I can take a task and say, maybe this gets pushed out. I can go and remap the due dates just like that. Everything is going to go with it. So very helpful. Again, it's skipping the weekends. As you can see, the weekends are hidden. So you want to be able to do that because, again, you want to make sure things are not falling overdue. So if you have to remap tasks, that's going to help with just making your workload a bit more accurate for your team. So go ahead, build dependencies into your tasks as well. And you can use the Gantt view for your project managers to remap the due dates to make sure that things are not falling overdue. So once you're done with that, once you've built out your task template, you'll also have list templates as well for larger projects, like especially client onboarding or your website projects. You want to build all of those out inside of ClickUp. I can go ahead and I would save this. I'm in the template center, similar to how we did it with a view template earlier, save as a template. And then I'm going to go ahead in my template center. I can then deploy those into all of my client folders. And again, you're going to have the same sort of methodology that I was discussing, one user, one sitting, not to exceed 4 hours on all of these tasks, because it's going to make it super actionable, make it due on the due date, just like that. Follow that methodology. That's going to be very helpful for you and your team. And so just to show you what this all looks like once you take that blog post and all of your other templates that you build out, you put them in your delivery space here into your client folders, you'll see I have all of these listed out. I have my due dates on there. They're all signed. I don't have my start dates on there, but all the time estimates are in there with the assignees. That's going to all just populate my workload view, and I'm able to plan out way in advance. So I can remap these if I have to, but when I deploy all these templates here, and to do that, I would go into the list settings. I can go to my templates, browse templates. I can find my blog post right in here. I can go ahead and just deploy it very easily. I'm going to go to task templates there. We'll see my blog post, use the template. I can name it if I want to. I can remap the dates as well, put a parent task due date on there, put it out 4 weeks, December 8th, use the template, and it's going to deploy it right into that folder. And then I'm going to go ahead and assign that to whoever is in charge of that blog post. But it makes it super easy. That way, once you get all of your tasks here into the system, that's going to be what populates your workload view again with the assignees, due dates, and those time estimates as well. All right, so that's really just phase 3. That's going to be the big one, though. You're going to want to get all your processes built out. But phase 4, what we're going to do is we just need to start living by the philosophy that if it's not in ClickUp, it doesn't exist. So with that, that just means that you need to make sure that everything you do, every task gets into ClickUp. So people forget about a lot of things. They might get their processes like that for the blog post, but oftentimes they forget about things like internal meetings or personal development, or even just like going on LinkedIn and sending emails, which sometimes is just helpful to have a basic task that you maybe do and have it recur every single day. You want to make sure that you don't forget about that stuff. So we want to make sure that we get everything into ClickUp. And so you can build processes for things like that. So if I go here, I have a meeting template built out, and we need to make sure, again, someone needs to prepare for the meeting. We need to attend the meetings. And then if someone also has some action items after that meeting too, all of that takes time. All of that is going to contribute to our workload. So we need to make sure all of that is in the system as well. And you can make these recurring tasks too, so that you can see those in the future. But we need to make sure that we have all of our meetings in ClickUp, all of our growth tasks, all of our operations tasks, anything that's internal, we need to have that in ClickUp as well, because you might have people in your client services team that are doing things internally as well. So we want to make sure that we get all of that accounted for. So get all of that into ClickUp. In addition to that, we also need to take into consideration out of office. So that's a big part of seeing workload as well. And the way that you can manage that in ClickUp is you're going to have sort of an out of office manager. This can be a separate space if you want it to be. And you're going to have a folder in here with this. This can have a form on this that essentially I can come into the out of request form. I can send this to everyone. So if they want to request out of office, they just fill out this form with their time off start date, time off end date, leave type, things like that. And then what you want to do, and this is the big thing that's going to contribute to workload, is that you're going to have tasks for everyone that is out of office. So what this is where I'm actually going to use my start dates and due dates, but I'm going to have the task will be named, say, Jeff Cipher out of office. The assignee is going to be me. The start date, maybe this is going to be on Monday. The due date is on Friday. That's the start date is going to be the day that I start taking off. The due date is going to be the day that I finish taking off. And then I'm also need to make sure I have a time estimate on there as well. So that time estimate, if I'm taking off all week, will be 40 hours. Again, it's going to split it up across the start date to the due date. So 40 hours, that'll be perfect to split that up. And that's essentially in the workload view. It's just going to show that I'm fully booked up. That might not be tasks, me being filled up because of tasks. That's me just being out of office. But that'll let project managers or whoever know that, hey, I don't have the capacity to take any work on because I'm not going to be here in the office. So that's a big thing too, is you want to make sure you get that out of office inside of ClickUp. So get a management process for that with a form, also with tasks in there. And you can do this for holidays as well, but just have people listed out. Their name is the task. You're going to have a start date, the first date of when they're taking off, due date, the last date, as well as that time estimate to populate that workload view. So that's what you want to do. Make sure everything is in ClickUp. If it's not in ClickUp, it doesn't exist. Get all your internal tasks in there as well as out of office managed in ClickUp as well. And so that is all great, but now we move to step number 5. Phase number 5 is now we need to actually optimize. So once we build all of our processes, get our tasks in the system, we need to be continuing to make it better. So our processes need to be updated with time estimates, and we need to continue to just optimize what we've built, because that's how we're going to actually start to see workloads. So you might not see it right away, but over time, as you begin to continue to develop, continue to optimize what you've built out already, you're going to continue to see that workload and just keep getting better inside of ClickUp. So to do that, what I would recommend is one, you're going to want to have an estimated versus actual dashboard to see all this information. This is a great way to just sort of start seeing your time estimates for time that was actually tracked. So you'd be able to see sort of last month's or this month's or whatever cadence you want to work on that. Again, this is where it's helpful to have a ClickUp champion. Well, you're going to want to make sure that you come into a dashboard, you have time reporting for all of your clients, time reporting by client, and time reporting by users at least, because then I can start to see sort of at the high level where we're estimated versus tracked way off. And then I can start to dig into that to see if I can see any issues. And then you get to the point where now you're looking at time reporting by users, and I can look at my tasks here to know, okay, tracked was 3 hours, estimated was 30 minutes. Why did I take so long? And so that kind of tells me, hey, maybe this task in our process, I need to up that time estimate or decrease it, whatever it may be. So that is a great way of doing that, is having a dashboard where you're looking at time estimates versus those actual time that was tracked to make sure that we're not seeing any too big of differences there. I mean, once you start to see someone or certain tasks that have taken people way longer on every single client for every single person, that's when you know, hey, I need to go back into my process library and adjust that template. So you can have a dashboard like this. In addition, you can have something like a completed deliverables view, where essentially this is just showing me all of the deliverables that we finished for clients. And you can build this at the delivery space, your growth space, operations, or wherever, even at the everything level. But what this does is it shows me everything that we've complete, and I'm using this to then go look into our time estimates and time track. You're probably already looking at this data anyways, but if I go here, now I can say, hey, this was estimated at 9 hours and only took 5 hours and 43 minutes. What were the differences there? And I can come down and I can look at write blog copy. That was tracked 3 hours and our time estimate was 2 hours and 30 minutes. Now, maybe I start to see the difference there, and maybe I need to go back into this blog post process template and adjust that time estimate. So we're going to need to continue to develop those time estimates to be as accurate as possible, because that's what's going to give us the accurate workload. In addition, if there's some tasks that get moved out a bunch, then maybe I need to start to look at, hey, do we need to put these due dates in here to be a little bit further apart than what I originally did? Because all of that, again, you just need to continue to optimize those process templates that you've built, because that's what's going to contribute to workload as well. We need to make sure that we get it as accurate as possible so that those tasks are always being done on the date that they're due. So that's going to be a big contributor in here as well. So create an estimated versus actual dashboard, a completed deliverables view. There's other things you can create as well that are just going to be super helpful for you when you go to optimize your process templates. And really, after you do all those steps, again, it's going to take a lot of hard work and effort as you do all this. Again, get all the processes built and start to optimize them as well as time goes on. But once you do all that, your workload view is just going to continue to get better and better and better sort of each cycle you go through, because you're going to start off with not much showing here if you're building ad hoc tasks and putting them into ClickUp. But as you start to get those processes built out and get more and more processes and then more and more tasks in the system as well, and actually do your workload or your out of office in ClickUp there too, you'll start to get a very accurate view of workload here in the workload view. Again, this is very promising. There's a lot that you can do with this view, and it's very helpful, but you need to have everything in ClickUp. You need to have time estimates, due dates, and assignees on every task, and you need to have your processes fully built out to really get the most out of this view. So if you want to start seeing your team's capacity, then follow this process. Unfortunately, there's no magical switch that you can just go and turn on and start to see all this data. It's going to take time and effort, but in the end, trust me, it is worth it. And at Zenpal, we've helped close to 3,000 different agencies streamline their operations in ClickUp so that they can see workload and capacity, profitability, utilization, and project performance all in one place. So if you're ready to stop burning your employees out by either over or underworking them, then go to zenpal.com/call and book a call with one of our experts. We are here to help. Taking your operations seriously will change your life, and I want you to experience this life-changing impact. I can't wait for you to be our next agency success story. I'll see you again next time.
Can I make no more? I can't replace it. Trying hard just not to waste it. It's about time. Yeah, it's about time.